What's going on, everybody? It is, I'm recording this on Tuesday, January 22nd, is this week's edition of the Weekly Word. I didn't get a chance to record one last week because I was really busy with my late work schedule. So this week is kind of a jam-packed show. Got a lot all together to dissect and talk about and share my thoughts with you guys. From the very cold confines here in Indiana. It is bitterly cold. It's been cold the last few days and nights. We had a wind chill advisory yesterday, so got the heat on in multiple places. I'm even wearing a heat pad myself, so on my back. So aside from that, trying to stay warm. We'll get right into the big topics for the week that I've discussed on my feed. And obviously, the two big stories that really kind of dominated the sports world this week that I just feel like I have to talk about are the hoax involving Notre Dame linebacker Manti Te'o, and of course the coming out and confessions of Lance Armstrong in his interview with Oprah Winfrey. First, I want to start off by talking about the whole Manti Te'o hoax. I mean, this was kind of a big bomb dropper when it came out. I mean, first, if you guys hadn't heard the story, which maybe hopefully you have, but to kind of give you guys a little bit of background, throughout the year, obviously Te'o was one of the best players in the country, probably the best linebacker in the country. Obviously, for a Notre Dame team that was very good this season. In fact, made it all the way, of course, to the national championship, where they got destroyed by Alabama. But to me, like I've said, that was expected. But certainly Te'o, one of the best players in the country, will certainly be a very high NFL draft commodity this April. But the big thing surrounding Te'o is his battle to play through adversity. He had dealt with a lot of things this season. Not only eventually did he go on and win the runner-up at the Heisman behind Johnny Manziel, but that was a good thing. But this adversity, the struggles he's been with all season, on the same day, he not only loses his grandmother, but he also loses his girlfriend, Lene Kukua. And so we were hearing the stories, and then that same, either the next day or the same night, he goes out against Michigan State, a big game for the Irish, and he just has the game of his life. Something out of a movie, something out of like Brett Favre playing after his dad dies, or Torrey Smith playing after his brother dies. Something like out of a book or a movie. He went out, had like 12 tackles. I think he had a fumble recovery and completely willed that defense to a 20-3 win over Michigan State, which was huge. It kept the Irish's undefeated season alive, and it was just so inspirational. There were articles written about it. He was telling this stuff to Newsweek and Sports Illustrated and all the big magazines out there. We were eating this stuff up because as sports fans, that's what we love about sports. We love these inspirational stories and really kind of tug at the heartstrings a little bit, and we just want these players to succeed because we care. We feel, we kind of feel what they're going through in a way. We can maybe we can relate to them a little bit, but we want to care for them. We want to reach out to them and say, hey, it's gonna be okay. You're gonna get through this. You're going to go out there, play an awesome game. And that's what athletes have done in the past. But this Te'o thing was really huge because it was just the fact that not only you lose a close family member, but to lose your girlfriend on the exact same day, it just seemed like, it was like a double slap in the face. Could he really will himself to get through that? And when he did and played that well, we were just all mesmerized. And then he, of course, goes on to have an outstanding season. Notre Dame gets to 12-0, number one in the BCS, goes to the national championship game, and yes, they lose to Alabama. And Te'o later gets runner-up for the Heisman Trophy, wins a myriad of other awards in the process, wins the Walter Camp, wins the Bednarik, wins all these other major awards. He is just truly one of the just guys that we can say, yeah, we can relate to that. That's awesome. He's one of the inspirational stories of the year. And then it came last Wednesday, or the Wednesday before, that Deadspin.com, which when it comes to sports news is, they kind of go for the oddball stories for the most part, but also they go for the stories that, sometimes get out there and make big news. And this was certainly one of them. Deadspin.com dropped the bomb. They released the story that they had done an investigation of their own and looked into multiple records and found that Manti Te'o's girlfriend never existed. There was no social security record. There was no death certificate. There was no, obituary. There was no record of her going to Stanford. There was nothing. There was nothing legitimate on Lene Kekua. There was no record of her ever existing. Really, the only way that we knew about her was through Twitter accounts, was through pictures on the Twitter account. According to Te'o and later at Notre Dame, it was by emails, by Facebook, by phone calls. That was the only way they had this relationship. But then there came some conflicting reports out of the South Bend Tribune that actually said that I think Manti's father, Brian Te'o, said this, that they had actually met beforehand in 2009 at Stanford following a Notre Dame Stanford game, and that's where they really started a relationship. And there were other players saying, no, like former players, like the Cardinals player who came out and said, no, she's real. I have actually met Lene Kekua. So there was a lot to dissect when this story first came out. Clearly, it was a bomb dropper, because we then had to take a step back from the wow of the inspiration and say, wait a minute, what? And then the questions really started flying. Then there was like, okay. And the quote that got everybody, and that certainly got me, was that Deadspin.com said that with 80% certainty, 80%, that's a pretty high figure, 80% that Te'o knew about it, was in on the hoax, he knew about it, and did it with publicity in mind. That is just like throwing a big rock through this shiny piece of glass, this amazing story, and just shattering it in a million pieces. That's what it seemed to me anyway. And it was just this big thing. I'm like, whoa, okay. So you and your buddy, or whoever was behind these accounts in this, concocted this whole thing just to make you look better for the Heisman purposes, for to make Notre Dame look good. And it really put a sour taste in my mouth on Manti Te'o as a whole. Well, Notre Dame was so panicked over it that they decided to call a news conference, and the athletic director, Jack Swarbrick, he immediately said right away, no, wait a minute, let's calm down. Here's what really happened. As far as we know, as far as the knowledge that we've gotten, it was a hoax. Yes, we understand that, but Manti was the victim. He was in no way involved. He had no knowledge of being a hoax. He completely went along. He felt as if it was an authentic, real relationship with this person, even though they had never met in person. And Manti later said in the interview with Jeremy Schaap, and you can read the transcript on ESPN.com. It's there. He didn't go on camera for this interview, mind you, but he did have an interview later on with Jeremy Schaap 2 days after the report came out. That he basically said, I knew. I mean, wow, this is kind of hard. Sorry, I'm trying to pick my words smartly here. Yeah, I thought that this was authentic. I never actually met her in person, but our conversations were through emails, through text messages. I would stay with her on the phone. That's how it was. That was the exclusive and only to that. So really then people still didn't fully believe. They still didn't know what to believe when it came to this whole thing. They were just really, really confused, and we all were. And I even posted a message. I said, well, until really Manti comes out himself and actually speaks, we're going to be left with a lot more questions than we are answers. We don't really know the whole thing. But as the days went along, more details started to come out. And also we started to find out more about the guy supposedly behind the Twitter accounts of Lene Kekua, a young student named Renaya Tuiasosopo. Now, that last name certainly was familiar to me. It jumped out at me because I know that a lot of their family history, especially Marquis Tuiasosopo, who played college at Washington. I went to the Rose Bowl game between Washington and Purdue back in 2001. And that was, of course, also Drew Brees' last collegiate game. And Marquis was the quarterback for Washington, and Washington won that game 34-24. But so I recognized the name, and I'm like, whoa, okay, they must be related somehow. Well, they are. They're actually, I think either cousins or brothers, something like that. But he supposedly had not only behind this, but he had done similar. He had pulled off this same thing in the past with other people, not exactly with high-profile celebrities, but like Te'o or high-profile athletes, but with other people. And later, two people came out and said, yeah, we had been duped the same way by the person with the same name, same exact pictures, same similar details. And whenever Lene said, I want to meet you at such and such place, she would never be there. She wouldn't even be there, and Renaya would be there, and maybe with people that were in on the hoax with his cousins or something like that or whatever. It would always be Renaya that was there. So we really then started to really see the details come to light and realize the full extent of what was going on here. And then there's another thing where on the Twitter feed, Lene's Twitter finally came active after this all came out and said, I'm going to be making a big announcement here to clear some things up. And we're like, oh boy, now we're going to really find out the truth. And in the end, all that was they kind of kept the thing going and said, oh, after all, I've come to the realization that Manti Te'o is not real. So it was just a continuing play on the hoax. He kept this going for as long as he could. And then we even heard something more bizarre. We later found out that Te'o actually knew about the hoax on December 6th. Supposedly, because he got a call because you have to understand, September 12th was the day that his grandmother, who was real, died, and his girlfriend, who he later turned out to be false, also died. He got a call December 6th. He was at the award show in Orlando, which ESPN was taping the same day, obviously, and he got a call supposedly from Lene Kekua with the person's voice that was doing her voice, supposedly. And she says to him, yeah, this is Lene, and I'm actually not dead. I'm alive. It really took Te'o off guard a bit, and he wondered. He said, according to the interview, he says to him, okay, what's going on? I'm confused as all get out. What in the world? So he knew right then and there that he had been duped and hoaxed and catfished, as we later found out the term, from the MTV show as well, the whole time. He had completely been duped and not known a thing about it. But here's where it gets kind of confusing, is because he didn't tell anybody from Notre Dame until December 26, 20 days later, but later found out because of that. Why did he wait so long? It's because Notre Dame didn't really want to reveal it until they conducted their own investigation. And also he mentioned, Te'o mentioned the word girlfriend 2 times after that December 6th call. So he kind of sort of kept it going, but at the same time, I think they wanted to wait patiently, and they didn't want to do it before the BCS championship game either, because to take away from all of that publicity. So there was a lot to dissect. There was a lot to talk about. But then finally, a couple days ago, they revealed that the woman who Tuiasosopo was using the photos of for Lene's Twitter account, Diane O'Mara, she said she knew nothing about it either. She was also caught up in it and duped because she knew Tuiasosopo from high school, and he used her pictures without her knowledge. So really, Renaya in the end ended up catfishing a lot of people besides Manti Te'o, as he has done. But according to the interview, according to what we've heard from recently past days, Renaya finally did confess and apologize to Te'o, to Diane O'Mara, and I think mostly to the people that he has been in all this. So finally, I think with the confession and the apology, this whole thing finally comes to a close. But certainly looking back on it, in the end, it doesn't make the story any less bizarre. It just goes to show that sometimes you just can't trust what's out there. And I know that a lot of people of us already know that from the internet. I think we already really know that, but it just kind of gives a sense of being a little bit extra careful. To me, I think a red flag should have gone up immediately when and Notre Dame players even knew this. They said we had an inkling that she really wasn't his girlfriend, that she really didn't exist because Te'o had never met her. So that should have been a woo 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 red alert right away, because they never even met. And I understand that long distance relationships, sure, they're possible and sure they can happen, but But like this, I mean, when you don't do any research, don't do any background looking, you don't do, you just buy into it thinking it's going to work. I mean, that you're either really desperate for love or you're, I don't know. I think you are. So it's just going to go down as one of those really bizarre sports stories that but here's the thing, actually in a way we all fell for it because we all love those stories. So really Renaya catfished a lot of us because we all thought that it was just this great story, and in the end we all fell for it, and we all have egg on our face now because we all really got duped by someone who, I don't know what Renaya's motives are in doing this. I don't know if it's just for fun or if it's just to get a kick out of it. If the guy's got nothing better to do, I don't know. I wish we could hear. Obviously, the next step in this is to hear from Renaya personally, because all he's done is just say, "Yeah, okay, I've confessed and apologized to these people." Well, what are your motives? What are your motives for doing this to people? What was your motive for doing it to one of the most high-profile college football players in the country? I really think that's the next step in this whole thing. We need to hear personally from Renaya Tuiasosopo himself and figure out what his motives were for doing all of this, because even though now that the damage has been done and the apologies have happened and the confessions have happened, there's still the question that's going to be asked until it gets answered is why. Why did this happen? Why would you drag a guy through this? Why would you, you know, it just leaves a lot of whys, and we need, and we're really not going to have full closure on this story until Renaya himself comes out and talks. That's, and I don't know if he would sit down with Oprah, or I don't know if he would sit down with Jeremy Schaap or somebody like that. I don't know. Obviously, I'm sure there are going to be a lot of calls, and there have been a lot of calls made, and he's refused to answer all of them. So maybe at some point someone's going to offer him a pretty sweet deal, and I guess that's the sour thing in all of this. Someone's going to offer him a real sweet deal to say, hey, here's X amount of dollars or X amount of gifts or whatever. We want your side of this story. We want you to know your motives. The world needs to know why you honestly did this. So until that happens, I don't think there can be full closure. It's like the book is almost closed, but there's like, when you're reading a book and you fold a page over because you want to leave off where you're at, and that's kind of, or you put a bookmark in. That's kind of where we're at right now on this Manti Te'o story. There's a bookmark sitting there, and that bookmark won't be removed until Renaya actually speaks and writes the rest of the story for us and fills in the blanks. So that's really what's left in this whole saga. We need to find out why Renaya did what he did, why he's done it before, and what does he gain? What personal gain does Renaya Tuiasosopo gain from doing this? What does it make his family really look any better? His family already is high profile. Two of his family members have played football for years. What does he have to gain from doing this? So again, there's still a lot of questions left to be answered in all of this, but nothing is really going to be, the book is never going to be closed and locked until Renaya puts the key in it himself and writes the rest of the story. With apologies to Paul Harvey. All right, so moving on from that, as great, as mind-boggling of a story as that was, we thought the big story of the week until that happened, it came out at the same time, was going to be the big interview, the big moment. And if you don't get the OWN network, I'm sure you've read the transcripts by now, the Oprah Winfrey Network, of Lance Armstrong finally sitting down with Oprah Winfrey and finally coming clean. Finally, after all 13 years of denying, just flat out vehemently denying for years that he ever took performance-enhancing drugs of any kind to improve his cycling performance. Lance finally sat down and finally said, you know what, now it's time. Just a couple, I think it was just last year, he finally decided to give up the fight against the allegations. He had been fighting those for years, but finally said, you know what, there's a time when you have to say enough is enough, and now's that time. And then finally we have this interview. So, and Oprah got straight to the point. First night of the interview, she just said, let's just straight out say what, let's just straight out, say what we've been waiting to hear. I just want yes or no answers from you. And then she laid out 5 big questions. Did you use performance-enhancing drugs to boost your cycling performance? Yes, I did. Was one of those EPO? Yes. Was one of those blood transfusions, blood doping? Yes. Was it also, did you use any other things like testosterone or cortisone or human growth hormone? Yes. And then she asked a really big one that I also found quite surprising. In all 7 of your Tour de France wins, did you use performance-enhancing drugs? And he said yes. All 7 of them. So really, in the end, we can't be, like, after that, I said, well, already 6 minutes into this interview, and if anything, Lance Armstrong has shown to us that he is human, that he is not invincible, that he is not flawless, that he, apparently could not do this without doing this. And then Oprah asked him that, and then he was writing that follow-up question. Oprah said, in your opinion, could you have won 7 Tour de France titles in a row without taking performance-enhancing drugs? He said, not in my opinion. Why do you think I don't watch the race anymore? I mean, I honestly thought the only reason that I watched that bike race back in the 90s was because of Lance Armstrong. Well, and maybe Miguel Indurain when he had his run early on before. But Lance was the only reason that I watched that race because he overcame cancer. I mean, that wasn't, speaking of inspirational stories, that was an inspirational story in and of itself. The fact that he took on cancer that had spread to his body and he beat it and won, I mean, that in and of itself was amazing. And then for him to go on and do what he did, winning 7 titles in a row, which something no cyclist had ever done, we thought at that time, this is too good to be true. And in the end, it turned out, unfortunately, that it was. Again, going back to the duping thing, we got duped by, Renaya Tuiasosopo, we got duped by Lance Armstrong. I mean, the egg is on our face twice. I mean, it's just so, it's good in a way for Lance to come out and confess because of the fact that he needs to get it off his chest, but it's so sad because we believed in this guy. We honestly thought that he was the last good thing left about cycling, because you've even seen the Tour de France the last couple years. What happens to the winners? They get stripped of their titles. Why? Doping. Floyd Landis, Alberto Contador, and they come up with excuses. Oh, I ate contaminated meat. No, bull hockey. We all know what you do. So that's why I don't watch the race anymore. Nor do I care, because every time the winner, or I'm sure all top 10, are going to be tested, and I guarantee you somebody's going to come out with a positive test, and it probably will be the winner. And I now call it the Tour de Doping, because that's exactly what it is. That race is never going to be the same. USADA and UCI and WADA and all these or abbreviation names, LMNOP, they can do all they want. They can try whatever they want. All this does, at least in my opinion, is that someone is going to find a way to beat the system. Lance Armstrong pulled off the most elaborate, most depth-defying, the most outrageous, the most comprehensive scheme we've ever seen. I mean, it is on so many levels. It is just absolutely head-scrambling. I mean, head-scrambling, mind-boggling, twisted, whatever adjective you want to use. It is just so unreal. And the outcry, and you notice the outcries after the interview, they weren't of support. They were not of support for Lance, because these people now, I don't think they can forgive him. I really don't. The people that he talked to at the hospital in IU when he was overcoming the cancer, and he told the doctors in the room, "Yes, I took all these things." And and they went on Piers Morgan on CNN and said, "You dropped the ball, Lance. You owe it to me to really fully come clean, and you're not doing it." And when he said that he hates the UCI, well, that's a bunch of bull, because the UCI was in his back pocket. So this whole thing has just completely. I mean, again, I don't blame Lance for doing the interview. I don't blame him for that. I'm happy for him that he had the guts and the courage to come out and come clean. The problem I have is this went on for 13 years. For 13 years, he said to anyone who even brought up a thought of him being a drug cheat, I'm a cheater, I'm a cheat, I'm a drug cheat. He said, "Fark you, I'm going to hound you and sue you for all you got, for libel, slander, defamation of character, saying naughty words. I mean, writing this about me in this paper, writing this about me in this magazine, publishing this report. I mean, if you even looked at him wrong, I mean, I think he even said that. If you even looked at me wrong, I was going after you. You were on my hit list. I was going after you like a wolf in the forest." I mean, he was like, "Oh, I'm on their witch hunt." Well, then he tried to pull spells on them. And he pulled a spell on all of us because he did. He fervently denied it. Every single time a microphone was in Lance Armstrong's face, he said, "No, I did not do this. You can't prove anything. No, this is all not true. This is total, bull. They can say what they want. I'm going to go after him." And you know what? In some of those lawsuits, he won. He won some of them. Why? Because they couldn't prove anything. But then came out that 1,000-page report from USADA, the United States Anti-Doping Agency, that had all this evidence, that had, tons of eyewitnesses from his cycling team, including Floyd Landis, including George Hincapie, including all these guys that had ridden with him, and said, "Yes, he did these things. Yes, we saw it. Yes, he would kick me off the team if I didn't comply. Yes, yes, yes." The writing was on the wall. The writing was on his forehead. The writing was there. And finally, he said, "Okay, enough's enough. This has finally reached a point where I can no longer cover this up and sugarcoat it. I got to come out. I got to sit down with somebody that's not going to be biased towards me." So obviously he wasn't going to do this with ESPN. He wasn't going to do this with any high-profile media source. No. He was going to sit down with Oprah, apparently, is the best next person he could find, and say, "Okay, it's all on the table. It's out there. No holds barred. I'll answer the questions honestly, candidly, and I'm going to put it out there." So I at least applaud Lance for that. But again, I'm kind of in the same boat as everybody else. I can't fathom why he drug this on for 13 years, why he made a lot of us look like fools, and why now? I mean, this, does he want to come back to competition? He said, "Hell yes," but do you really think that anyone is going to let him come back? Well, first, his age. I mean, he's almost pushing, 40 now? And secondly, I mean, what's the chance he's, might do it again? I mean, this is just, it is just so, it's heartbreaking. It really is. So again, I said he was the only reason I watched people race on bikes, because I watched it on the Outdoor Channel. It was called the Outdoor Channel back then, or it was called the Outdoor Life Network. And I'm like, "Where's Lance? Where's Lance? Where's he at? What place is Lance in?" He was the only reason that I watched that stupid race. The only reason. Because I was looking to see where he was. He was in the yellow jersey. Where's the yellow jersey? He was the only reason that I watched the race and would follow it on the internet. And now look. Sorry, but that's how I feel. And now I have no desire to watch it. I don't care who wins. I don't care what happens. I don't care if there's a crash. I mean, I really, I don't care, because that is the culture that it's in. It is a mess. It is an embarrassment to sport. It is an embarrassment to be a sport right now. It is just a flat out embarrassment. And is cycling ever going to save itself? I don't know. Is Lance Armstrong ever going to save himself? That's an uphill battle. So at this point, again, happy that he came out, but the fact that he fooled us all for 13 years, it is hard to grasp. It is hard to fathom. It is just so hard to comprehend why we put so much trust and so much faith in someone to do all of this, and then later find out that it was all it was all poof. It was all nothing. It was a whole bunch of nothing. It was a show about nothing, just like Seinfeld, a show about nothing, and that's what it was, a show about nothing. And you know, the race obviously is never going to be the same. Cycling as a whole, never going to be the same. The drug testing companies now have to get off their butt and realize, hey, we got to do a better job of catching people, of testing people, of doing this. There's got to be change in that. Um, just sweeping reforms across the board here. Just it's carnage right now, and it just needs complete and utter change in order to save itself. That's really where it's at right now. It is cycling is like on a list of sports. It's like it's way down here. It's close to touching the bottom of the totem pole. I don't know what could be possibly below cycling at this point, but it's pretty darn close. So it needs major help. And so again, just a lot to dissect, a lot to think about there, but just help across the board is what's needed here with Lance, with the sport, with drug testing in general. When it comes to that sport, just needs help across the board. All right, guys, moving on. Those were kind of the two big stories that really permeated the sports world this past week. A couple other little smaller details to talk about. Obviously, I mentioned the end of the NHL lockout in the last weekly word, and now we're just getting the season started and underway, which is exciting. Some big moves happened really in the offseason to turn some teams around. I just want to give you guys maybe a quick little preview of where I see things happening this season. And I know a couple of games have already been played, but just my quick take on things. Obviously, in the East, I love the Penguins this year. I'm a fan already, but I'm a huge. I mean, the team is healthy with Crosby and Malkin. That's a big 1-2 punch. Fleury's starting to look strong again. The team as a whole is just looking really strong. They got goal scorers, they got talent, and I think they're definitely going to be a serious contender this year. Also, the Rangers are going to be a team to watch with now Rick Nash in a Ranger uniform, so that's going to be an interesting thing to watch as well. The Southeast Division is really one that's kind of up for grabs because Florida was kind of a surprise winning it last year. Obviously, Washington's going to contend again this year, and Florida's looked strong the first few games. So I think either one of those two are probably going to come out of there. As for the other division, what's that one? Oh, the Northeast. That one's again is kind of a toss-up too, but Ottawa's looking strong of late. Obviously, Boston always seems to contend in this division as well. So those are the teams that kind of like up there. New Jersey, they made the Stanley Cup final last year from the other division where Pittsburgh's at. So the East, obviously we kind of know who the top teams are, but it'll be interesting to see who gets into those bottom slots in the playoffs. Kind of maybe those like 5 through 8 seeds. It'll be interesting to see really who comes out of there. But I think if I had to project maybe right now, like who comes out of the divisions, I would say Pittsburgh. I'd have to go with Ottawa slightly over Boston. And then the Southeast, again, that's a real toss-up. But I'd have to say Florida. It's a real toss-up between Florida and Washington, but for now, I'd have to say Florida would come out of that. I still think Washington's going to make the playoffs. I still think Boston's going to get in. And then really you kind of got a hodgepodge with New Jersey and the Rangers. Maybe Tampa Bay sneaks in. Of course, they got Stamkos there. So, yeah, it's kind of those bottom spots that's really going to be kind of a toss-up in the East. But we kind of have a sense of who the top teams are. Out West, it's kind of the same thing. St. Louis is going to be a serious contender this year. They were a great team last year. Obviously, of course, got swept by the Kings, the eventual Stanley Cup champs, but they're still loaded with talent. And they looked pretty good in the first night. They beat Detroit 6-0, which was just flat out impressive. So I think a guy like St. Louis, a guy like Chicago up there as well in that division. Um, Maybe Detroit finds a way to get in. It would be hard not seeing Detroit in the playoffs, considering how good Detroit is. But they're not as elite in seasons past, so they are starting to age a little bit. The surprise, though, as a whole, not in that division, but the surprise as a whole could be Edmonton, because the young talent in Edmonton, you realize Edmonton the last 2 years had the #1 draft pick. They've been awful, but they're starting to develop that young talent really well. And in a shortened season, maybe this is the year that Edmonton gets into the Stanley Cup playoffs. So I look for Edmonton to be a big sleeper this year. Also Minnesota, hey, they made the free agent signings of the offseason, getting Zach Parise and Ryan Suter. Please, Minnesota is going to be a strong contender this year. I also like Edmonton. And then in the Pacific Division, wide open. There's a lot of talent in the Pacific Division this year. You got Anaheim looking strong the first couple games. San Jose is always in contention. Of course, the Kings are going to be hungry again. And even Dallas. Even Dallas is in this discussion because they made a big move in the offseason. So, by getting Jaromir Jagr. So, there's a lot here to dissect. Ultimately, if I had to pick again, the top teams in the West, I'd have to say St. Louis coming out of the Central Division. Then the Northwest, leaning Minnesota. I like Minnesota there. Pacific, for me, it's really a toss-up at this point between... I don't think Dallas is enough as a whole to win the division. They might sneak into the playoffs, but I don't think there's enough there. It's really, I think, going to be a battle between Anaheim, San Jose, and Los Angeles. But ultimately, I'm going to give it to San Jose. I think that this is the Sharks obviously were disappointed they didn't win the division last year. I think this is the time that they win that division this year. So I like San Jose here. So I would say those are the top three, St. Louis, Minnesota, San Jose. I think Anaheim would certainly get in the playoffs this year. I think the Kings will get in again. And then I will say Chicago, I think, will get in. I don't think Dallas maybe will quite, because I think also Edmonton's going to get in. So then that leaves one spot open. And really then it's a battle between Detroit, Dallas, and maybe even Nashville or maybe Phoenix. So again, these bottom spots, there's going to be a lot of contention in these spots for these teams to get into the playoffs. So stay tuned. I think it's going to be, even though it's a sprint, it's only a 48-game season, it's going to go really, really fast. There'll be a lot of excitement and action. It'll be interesting to see who ends up in the Stanley Cup playoffs at the end of the season. Real quick, a couple more stories. My take on Chip Kelly. I mentioned that I was going to talk about how the Kellys, it was a good idea for them to stay at Oregon and Notre Dame. But then we had a wrench in the story later on in the week, because Chip Kelly then decided, Oregon was nice, it was cushy, but I'm going to change my mind and I'm going to go to the NFL. So he is now going to be the coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. And I must say, I was quite surprised. Obviously, the big question that's ringing in my mind is, well, why did he change his mind? And, the obvious question everybody's going to say is money. But really, is that the only reason? I mean, we've lately seen a big-time trend of college coaches going to the NFL and having major success. Good grief. Look at Jim Harbaugh now, coming from Stanford. He's going to be playing for in the Super Bowl, for gosh sake. Look at what Pete Carroll is doing in Seattle. That's a job that I certainly have been impressed by. So, in the end, based on recent trends, can I say that I'm fully surprised that Kelly is going to the NFL? No. But at the same time, he had such a good thing going at Oregon. So now, my biggest question is not whether or not Kelly's going to succeed in the NFL. He very well might. What he's got in Philadelphia is a lot of talent on that roster. Of course, his biggest question is going to be, who's my quarterback? Am I going to stick by Michael Vick, or is Nick Foles going to be my guy? He's come out and said, I have a lot of faith and confidence in Nick Foles. So, It looks like it's going to be his guy, but then what's Vic's future? He's got LaShawn McCoy. He's got Deshaun Jackson and Jeremy Maclin and Brent Selleck. He's got talent around him in Philadelphia. So the question is, how long is it going to take? How long are we going to give Chip Kelly to make an impact in Philadelphia? It obviously hasn't taken Harbaugh and Carroll very long to get their teams to success. Are we going to give Chip Kelly that same kind of maybe 2 to 3 year window? Is that really going to be ideal? Because fans in Philadelphia are ruthless. They want results right away. Flyer fans expect winning. Philly fans expect winning. Eagle fans, well, they certainly expect winning. They'll throw batteries on the field if they don't win. So, easy joke. It was there. Watch out for that Duracell. It might go up your nose. But anyway, so yeah, Philly fans expect winning. So obviously they were gaga and up in arms when they heard about the Kelly hire. So they want results right away. But I don't think it'll happen right away. We want to give him maybe a 2 to 3 year window to see what's going to happen, if he's going to be able to turn around the Eagles and make them contenders in an NFC East that is obviously loaded right now. It is just, loaded. It is just flat out loaded. Because you've got Griffin and the Redskins, if Griffin comes back healthy next year with that knee issue and pulls an Adrian Peterson, it is outstanding. The Redskins are going to have a heck of a year. You've got Dallas, who's always contending, and Jerry Jones has said, hey, I'm going to make changes in the offseason. You wonder what those changes are going to be, but certainly with Jerry Jones as owner, they're going to be good for Dallas. And then you've got the Giants, who are always contending with Tom as long as Tom Coughlin and Eli Manning are around. So Philly needs to improve right away. It's obvious that with the division as good as it is, Philly needs to improve, but don't expect a whole lot of overnight improvement, I think, from Chip Kelly. Unless he tries to play to the fans and give them that. Give him time. But as a whole, am I surprised by his decision? No. But my question now is, where's Oregon going to be now? Where is Oregon still going to be a major player in college football? Are they still going, with a lesser-known coach? Are they still going to have that high-octane offense? Are they still going to, obliterate opponents every night? Are they still going to be Pac-12 contenders every night? So really, it's not about where the Eagles are going to be. I think the Eagles are going to be fine. The bigger question is, where's Oregon going to end up when all is said and done? Is Oregon now? Can Oregon avoid completely falling off the mat when it comes to being a college football contender? As the Eagles' ceiling just hit the ceiling and went through it, is Oregon going to fall down the stairs and fall to the floor? That's really the big question right now when it comes to this whole situation. But good for Chip Kelly. I'm happy for him. I think, it's certainly a great opportunity. It's certainly, the tougher competition in the NFL. It's certainly great for that. I'm just really worried in the long run about where the Oregon Ducks are going to stand from here on out. Finally, obviously, have to talk about the Super Bowl matchup. We got the Harbaugh Bowl. I actually, these last couple weeks I've not been doing so good in picking teams. Divisional weekend, I went 1-3. The only one I got right was New England. I did not expect. I thought, honestly, Seattle was going to beat Atlanta, coming back from 20-0 down, and Russell Wilson playing out of his mind the way that he was. I thought Seattle was going to be able to hang on and win, but they gave Atlanta too much time, apparently, had those two great plays, and Atlanta was able to win that game. So that's when I got wrong. I got San Francisco wrong. I admit it. Colin Kaepernick has been absolutely outstanding since taking over the starting job. He has truly been a joy to watch. To think that he could outperform Aaron Rodgers in that was at San Francisco. But still, whether it be at Green Bay or at San Francisco, for him to outperform Aaron Rodgers, absolutely outstanding. And not only that, set records, put up 400-plus yards by himself, was absolutely outstanding. So that one I got wrong. I got wrong Baltimore beating Denver. I thought that Denver being at home with Peyton Manning doing what he had been doing all season, the 11 straight wins, but apparently this Ray Lewis story has taken on a life of its own, and Baltimore now is really, 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 really playing for him to win a one last Super Bowl title for Ray Lewis before he rides off into the sunset. So And, so I was really bad divisional weekend. I went 1-1 this week. I did have San Francisco beating Atlanta, and that result was really up in the air for the longest time because Atlanta was leading that game 17-0 second quarter. Atlanta got out to another big lead. And guess what? Atlanta blew it again. They let Colin Kaepernick and the 49ers get back in the game. They let him attack them. San Francisco takes a late lead, goes up 28-24 only. This time, though, Atlanta needed a touchdown to win, not a field goal, and they were unable to do that. So it really just goes to show that Atlanta in the playoffs, not good. I mean, Matt Ryan now record as a playoff starter is 1-4. So that's still not great. He still hasn't been able to get into the big time. He's still sitting in the pre-Peyton Manning Super Bowl win zone where he just can't seem to win the big one. So just great stuff by San Francisco there to pull that one out. And then Baltimore beating New England at New England. Joe Flacco once again outplaying Tom Brady for the second straight year. I mean, absolutely huge. You think Joe Flacco is not an elite quarterback. Well, he is proving all those people wrong again, time and time again, because he's just doing outstanding things. Hitting his receivers in Dennis Pitta and Anquan Bolden and Torrey Smith, while having a nice little scoop of Ray Rice on the side, pun intended, to do the running work. I mean, it's just a very well-rounded offense. But that defense, now that they are fully healthy and just absolutely buku insane. I mean, with Lewis and Suggs and Nada. I mean, if they play, but here's my concern though with Baltimore. Here's my concern. They beat Peyton Manning. They beat Tom Brady. That's great. And they beat Andrew Luck. You know what those three have in common? They're not running quarterbacks. They're not. Yes, occasionally Luck does some running for touchdowns, but that's really only when they're close to the goal line. Manning has never been a runner. Brady's never been a runner, although apparently his slide leaves less to be desired by almost kicking people in the groin. Ball buster. But, but no, they're not really traditional running quarterbacks. Colin Kaepernick is a dual threat running and passing quarterback. He does it both. Just ask Green Bay's defense. So my concern for Baltimore is the plan that they're going to have to shut down that dual threat in Kaepernick. But then again, this whole overcoming the odds and this Ray Lewis story is taking on this life of its own in Baltimore. New England was so cocky and confident that they were going to beat the Ravens. Oh, yeah, they put up billboards all around Boston saying, yeah, Ray's retirement party starts in such and such time. Well, Ray Lewis didn't get the memo because the party never happened, and New England, as Terrell Suggs would say, go enjoy the Pro Bowl. Oh, but wait, Tom Brady's not going. He's hurt. So Andrew Luck is playing instead. But, so anyway, what's hurt, Brady? Your pride? But anyway, so bottom line is, this is cool. It's brother versus brother coaching. It's the first time that's ever, that has ever happened in any Super Bowl. So that's awesome in and of itself. But the fact that Baltimore, if their defense can play like that against San Francisco the way they did against New England, and if Flacco can keep that offensive rhythm going that he has in that nice blend of offense, it's going to be a tough day for the San Francisco defense. As we saw against Atlanta. And San Francisco's defense has not exactly been outstanding in these playoffs. Gave up 31 to Green Bay, gave up 24 to Atlanta. Yeah, they shut them down second half, but they still gave them 20 points in the early going. They gave them 51 points in a matter of minutes. I mean, total. I mean, so San Francisco's defense leaves a lot to be desired, and they're going to have to really have a buckle-down game against Baltimore. So, really, the biggest matchups are Flacco against that San Francisco defense, the Baltimore defense against Colin Kaepernick. I think those really, this is which defense is going to be able to shut down the other team's quarterback. They say defense wins championships. Well, that's what's going to win this Super Bowl. Whichever defense shows up and plays better is going to be the winning team. And right now, if I had to make a pick at this very moment, I hate to say it, but I am leaning Baltimore because it is just, they have been underdogs this whole playoffs, except for the Colts game. Baltimore has been pretty much double-digit underdogs in their last two games. They were 10-point underdogs to Denver. They beat them. They were 9-point underdogs to New England. They beat them. Right now already they're an early 3.5 dog to San Francisco. Now, granted, that's not as many points, but still, it just feels like this Baltimore team is a team of destiny. It just feels like they're going to have this attitude of nobody believes in us. Nobody trusts that we can do this. Joe Flacco, no, he ain't elite. Ray Lewis, whatever. He's getting old in age. He needs to end at some point. The defense isn't that great as it once was. I tell you what, that defense is fully healthy. The weapons are there. And Joe Flacco, yeah, he might not have a ring yet, but he might get one in 2 weeks. He is playing at a level that is just buka right now. Then again, you know who I compare him to? Eli Manning. Remember what everyone said about Eli Manning? Said he could never win a big game. Said he never reached that level. Said he would never be one of the best in the NFL. And he's got 2 rings now. So, that's what it reminds me of Flacco here. And also the inexperience. You realize this will only be Colin Kaepernick's 10th NFL start, and that you remember he was a backup at the start of the season. I think the experience factor is also a huge thing playing in this. Flacco has the experience. Kaepernick doesn't. So that's really why I'm leaning toward Baltimore. All in all, I think it's going to be an outstanding game. I'm really looking forward to watching it in 2 weeks and seeing how these two teams face off, and face up. I was trying to say face off or face off, and maybe face up, and I said face off. I'm sorry. There's a blooper right there. Face off. I'm not sure what that is, but it'll be interesting to see how these teams face off against each other in New Orleans. I think it'll be an outstanding game because the coaches know each other, they know their teams well, and they both have weapons out the wazoo, and the defenses, are at least fairly strong. So again, I think whatever defense is going to show up and play stronger, I think is going to win. And right now, I'd have to say, if I were to make a pick right now, I'd have to say Baltimore. All right, guys, that's it. There is the jam-packed edition of the Weekly Word for this week. So because I am recording this show early in the week, I will actually post this video on Friday this week. There won't be a new word until next week because I get a week behind. But again, I just want to thank you guys for your views, your watches as I do this. When I have time to do this, I do this for you. So thank you all so much for that and your support. You're subscribing, you're encouraging. Please feel free. If you have any take on the topics I discuss about Te'o or Armstrong or any of this, please feel free to leave comments, and I will reply to them as most as I can. So again, have a great week, guys, and enjoy the Pro Bowl on Sunday. And also, real quick, I want to kind of a bonus topic. I want to know your guys' thoughts on the whole Oakland Raiders potentially throwing that Super Bowl from 10 years ago. That just broke today, and I really found that interesting that Coach Callahan changed the game plans 48 hours before or 36 hours before game time, and the team knew that they were doomed to lose. What's your guys' take on that? Let me know in the comments if you have a thought about that. If the Super Bowl that year you thought maybe ultimately was tainted because it was a blowout game. Remember, Tampa Bay won that game 49-26. It was not a game. So let me know your guys' thoughts on that. I'd love to hear your thoughts, and if you thought it was potentially a complete throwaway by the Raiders. So thanks, guys, and have a great week. God bless. Thank you.